How are you today?
I'm
Thanks so
wonderful. How are
much.
you today?
Well, I'm getting there slowly, day by
O-
day.
Okay, good deal. Well, it's great to meet you. Thanks for taking a minute out.
Oh, I appreciate all your accommodations here. My
Yeah, no
life has been
worries.
turned upside down here.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. It's all good. It's being alive. I get it. So
That's right.
let me ask you, where are you coming out of?
I live in upstate New York, Galatia, which
Okay.
is a little bit south of Albany, the capital region.
Yeah.
Beautiful, a little bit south of the Adirondacks, east of the Berkshires. Beautiful area.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, I'm coming out of Kansas City, so we're landlocked here in the middle of the map. So
Yep.
yeah. Well, it's great to meet you. And before we get into your life and your work, I want to know the last 3.5 years living through the pandemic's done its own thing on all of us. How did you get through it and how did it change you?
Well, it changed what I was doing drastically because I have been writing children's books since 2012. And for me, the best part of that is getting out and engaging with kids and parents and grandparents and sharing my enthusiasm for history and why it is so important for kids to know and understand history. And use that as a basis to become critical thinkers who can solve and analyze problems and become our future leaders. And I see our education system here in the US particularly as falling apart. And I've been involved in it for so many years. I had 40 years in education, first as a general ed teacher, and then realizing that there were so many issues that needed to be addressed, I went back into special ed, and I wound up working with special needs children on the preschool an early intervention level.
Yeah.
So these were kids who were just starting out, but we could do a lot for them if
Yeah.
we reached them early. So I eventually became the principal director of a special ed school, and then for a short time worked with the New York City Department of Education, getting and authorizing services for children with special needs. So my career in education really has swung the gamut, as with everything else. But I've always been somebody who is curious, persistent, and determined. So that kind of pushed me along the path.
It's interesting. My son is 18. His name is Miles. He's on the spectrum. So I've been in the special needs world for a while. So
Hmm.
I'm always appreciative of everybody that does the work and it's instrumental. And I know, catching, any kind of special need early on is a big deal to harness it. And I remember that very clearly when he was younger. And I know that you know, we moved to a specific area that had a better special ed center and he had a really good experience. So I can attest to the power of how that works.
And that's so important for parents to become proactive, because if they just sit back and let say, well, the system's going to work for me, that system surely doesn't work.
Yeah. Yep. You got to be an advocate in every single way you can, for sure. Um, so it's very clear on paper what you do for a living. So if I did put you in front of a bunch of third graders right now and it's career day, and one of the kids asked you, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child right now?
I would say I help children become their best selves.
So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
Oh, probably back in third grade, I wanted to become an airline stewardess because I wanted to travel and see the world. I came from a family that didn't have a lot of resources. Both of my parents didn't finish high school. They were children of the Depression. And they did, however, encourage me and push me, but they didn't have financial resources. So from the beginning, I was determined, hey, I'm getting ahead. I'm going to get out there. We didn't have a car, so we didn't travel very much. I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to see the world. And I did. So I've been to Soviet Russia.
Wow.
I've been to China. I've traveled all over Europe And I think it's just great when we can expand our horizons in any way we can. My philosophy is learn something new every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how did these seeds get into you to want to teach and to help kids and to write and to kind of do these things that you're doing now? How did that happen?
Well, I stayed in general education for a long time, and then as time went on, I began to realize that this kind of one size fits all education wasn't reaching so many of these kids. And I said, I want to learn how to better individualize curriculum and reach more children. So I went back, I got my certification in special ed, and I started working with special ed preschool. And this was a complete change from what I had been doing. So I've been working with your average middle class child, and all of a sudden I was thrown into the world of crack cocaine babies, Down syndrome, Fragile X syndrome, MS, children that had physical disabilities, children that had a lot of speech issues. So I became aware of education as something with much wider parameters. It's not just one person who stands in front of that classroom and is the quote teacher, but it's all of these people who can work together as a team to reach whatever that particular child needs. And it isn't easy, but it is so rewarding when you do make progress. It's like, it's just amazing. I had one child that I started working with when he was 3. He was a crack cocaine baby. Uh, his mother killed herself because of what had happened when he was born. And he was being raised by his grandparents, but they were wonderful. The grandparents did everything they could to get every resource for him. And when I started working with him, he was nonverbal. The day we got him to hold a picture in his hand and put his hand on it and say, eat, was like, like the whole world exploded. It was
Sure.
just like fantastic. And a few years later, he came back to me at the school to visit. By this time, he was school age child, and he was, of course, still in a very restrictive kind of special needs program. But he walked in with his grandmother and he said, "My name is Philip." It was just amazing, like
Yeah.
he remembered, and it was just, fantastic.
Yeah. That's wonderful. I remember my son getting speech services, and I just didn't know if he was ever going to talk. And I remember asking the therapist, "Is he ever going to speak? You can tell me." And she was like, "Oh yeah, it'll happen." And I just didn't believe it. Now Miles talks all the time. It's amazing.
He
That's his gift.
probably chews your ears off
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah, which I love. And he's very social and very engaging and loves talking to people. So when I think about those early beginnings to where he is now, it's pretty infectious. It's great. Great to see, you know. Um, so let me ask you this. In your life, who's been a hero for you? Who have you admired? Who's been kind of fuel for you to be who you are?
I think many people along the way. I had a godfather who was very supportive in trying to get me whatever resources he could, education wise, and help support my parents. I had a professor in college who, unbeknownst to me, when I was taking summer courses with him, put my name in for a scholarship for graduate school. I got a letter clear out of the blue. You have been awarded a graduate assistantship. I nearly fell through the floor.
Yeah,
But I think the person who played the most impact in my life was my high school world history teacher, who was a little tiny 4'11" woman who literally bounced across the room with enthusiasm, becoming the characters, laying out the story, showing how we were a part of that story even today. Because history to me is evolutionary, not revolutionary. It's a part of all of us. If we don't understand how we got to where we are today, how can we possibly go on from that, create a framework to do something better in the future? So that was, the philosophy that became ingrained with me. But she took me aside, and I was at the time on a commercial track, so I was taking courses mostly to become a secretary, business world, stenography, typing, all of that stuff was big when I was in high school. And she said, "No, no, no." She says, "Barbara, you have to go to college." And of course, I was an honor student. So she said, "You can do it, and you have to do it." And from that time on, I was determined. So, luckily for me, there was at that time in place in New York City, where I was at the time, I was attending school in New York City. There was a merit based public education system. So, you would apply to the city university on the basis of your grades and academic record. And if you were admitted, well, you got in. And every year the cutoff was different. It could be a 93 average one year and 90 average the next, but whatever school you applied to. And I was able to get myself in. And I worked on Saturdays, I worked during vacations, and I earned the money for my books and the other expenses that I need. Pushed myself through in 3 years by attending summer courses, and then I got that graduate scholarship uh, to get my master's degree. So I graduated right before I turned 21 with a master's degree in history.
Wow. So, it's interesting. I always remember people saying those, if we don't learn history, we're bound to repeat it.
Hmm.
And that's the interesting thing about evolution, what you said. It's not a revolution, it's an evolution. And I think it's interesting because that is the key to all of it. If we want to do things differently, we have to understand where we came from.
And what is happening today is just compounded by the world we're living in,
Yeah.
because technology is moving so fast. When I went to school, it was much slower, but it
Yeah.
was also a very singular step by step process. You got the book out, you read the book, you compared that source with other sources. You determined what was true and untrue. You took notes, you processed those
Yeah.
notes, you put them together. You formed a consensus, you formed a conclusion. So what happens today? Whoop, social media. Oh, I have a question. I'm going to Google it. What does a child do? They go to Google. First thing that comes up, okay, that's the answer.
Yeah.
Now, what would I do? I would go probably to page 6, 7, or 8 to go through all of the answers, the possibilities, see what is about this is factual, or is this just somebody's opinion? It's so important for children to understand the difference.
Yeah.
And today, they're just being fed an algorithm on whatever social media platform they use. And it keeps getting reinforced.
Yeah.
Okay. They want to fit in with their friends. So they keep seeing that same algorithm over and over again. And the news media, same thing.
Yeah.
We're being fed an opinion. It's no more nightly news. And, this is the way it is. The facts. Here's the facts. Think about them. Determine what you think is true or untrue. No. Now we're being fed by panels of, quote, expert journalists,
Mhm.
and we get one bias, and half the time it's the adults and the children. I mean, everybody just keeps reinforcing that one stream of information that they're getting, and we're no longer critical thinkers.
Yeah. I
I
agree.
mean, to be a critical thinker, you have to take a question, and then you have to look at the facts, and you have to sort through. Now, you may sort through different people's opinions, but you have to look for the real sources. In the old days, it was letters and journals. Now, what are, again, our sources are largely electronic,
Yeah.
and we have to be very careful to make sure those electronic sources are giving us facts, or is it just what somebody wants us to hear?
Yeah, that's true. So let me ask you this. If you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now that fascinates you, who would you love to meet and talk to?
Anybody that's alive now?
Yeah.
Hmm. I think I would like to meet Victor Davis Hanson, a very
Yeah.
interesting person. He is able to distill information in a very succinct manner. He can take a complex problem, he can pull out the major issues, and he can make them so clear without, again, stuffing his opinion in it. Well, here is what that question or focus or problem entails. And then you can kind of take those facts and put them together for yourself. So, I don't like
Yeah.
complicated. I write for children. So
Yeah.
I take my historian background, I do the research, I go to most of the sites that I talk about. A few of them haven't been to the North Pole yet, but most of these sites I go there. My husband is the illustrator. Together we do the photography. And through this cartoon like character that I have, Little Miss History, who is an interactive character that brings the children along into the adventure. So she kind of narrates the adventure and she's funny. I mean, she's kind of she my husband created her as a composite of a younger me. So she's a lot of the things I was. Uh, Always hiking, always exploring, looking for solutions. And I want kids to see themselves as part of that journey. I try to bring out little known information. I just don't write about the Statue of Liberty or write about Ellis Island or some of my books are history and science based, like Sequoia National Park.
Yeah.
But I give children questions to hold on to. Mount Rushmore, the Native Americans are building their own memorial to Crazy Horse nearby. Was it right to take the land from the Native Americans? What do they think about it? I tell them what's going on in the UN today with indigenous rights. I talk about some of the characters in the past who have been ignored or sidestepped because at that time, the people who were writing the history only wrote about what they saw as the most important parts of history. So I talk about people like uh, Alonzo Swan, who was on the deck of the Intrepid, saved the ship from a kamikaze attack. He was with a at the time black segregated unit. Most of them were wiped out. He lived, was given a Bronze Star, but eventually lobbied for more recognition and was given the Naval Cross. So we talk about all kinds of things like that. We look at the both sides. We never say, I never tell children this is the way it is. I tell them information that is factual and true, and I give them questions and options to think about it and to develop their own ideas about it, not just a falsified opinion, but to develop their own questions, to think that in that critical way. And that's what I do with all of my resources. So I started out doing that with my books. There are now 15 books. The newest one is the USS Slater. So it's a wonderful destroyer escort museum that's on the Hudson River. And it's a magnificent story that they never lost one ship going across in its career. And today it's lovingly restored and taken care of by patriots today, volunteers today who just want to see this piece of history survive. So I'm trying to instill that idea. This is our country. We are its citizens. We all need to take an active part in our history, and there is a role to play in history for all of us. All of us can become a character in history in some way, shape, or manner.
So if you could go back in time in history and witness any event that took place with your own eyes, what would you love to have seen?
I would love to have seen Abraham Lincoln in the White House. To me, he's a very complex yet a very simple character. And call me prejudiced because here I was born on Lincoln's birthday. So that coincidentally. But he is to me one of these people who was like Victor Davis Hanson. He was able to distill the meaning. Now, he made some wrong decisions, uh, but he had that grit and determination and substance to see things through, and we wouldn't be here today if he hadn't.
Yeah, for sure. So of all of the things that you've done and accomplished up to this point in your life, what are you the proudest of?
The proudest of, I think I am the proudest of what I'm doing now. I not only do I write the books for kids, but I'm trying to speak out. I'm trying to help parents and teachers develop resources to help children. So during COVID, of course, going back to I was shut in, not able to get in touch with my base. I started doing a lot of other things. I have a blog, so I do book reviews for not only children but all ages. So twice a week, I review what I call family-friendly literature on my blog. I developed a YouTube channel, so I collect resources for parents and teachers to use to help develop critical thinking skills, history videos for kids, history for kids told by kids, that kind of thing. And I have a little video that I put out every week, the 2 Minute Teacher. So I do lessons on all sorts of things. During COVID, of course, it was to help enhance education because a lot of kids weren't getting the formal education they needed at home. But I do videos on all subjects, so history, writing, uh, literature, science, just little extra things that help develop those critical thinking and focusing skills. So I have the blog, I have the YouTube channel, I have my book series. I I do podcasts and speak out on education and the things I think are necessary to enhance and bring it to what it needs to be. Parents are our first teachers, and I think parents need to be given back the right to determine what education is best for their children. We're now about number 20, or last time I looked, maybe lower in world standing of education. And this one size fits all approach, I saw it while I was teaching, and it got worse and worse and worse and worse. The corporate media getting involved, the unions getting involved. It's just gone downhill. So I think we need to go back to basics. Let the money follow the student, not dump the money into one big funnel of public education. Tailor that education to the way a child learns best, whether that's homeschooling, whether that's a group of co op schools that parents put together, whether it's a combination of partially public education and partially homeschool. Getting kids out into their communities, understanding their history, their heritage, what their roots are, and how important it is to understand ourselves and then to take that and to go out and look around in our community and understand the other people that we're living with and interacting with every day.
So everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, readers of your books, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm a just do it person.
Good for you.
Yeah, just go if something's important to you, if you have a passion, just go out and do it.
So if anyone wants to pick up your books, learn more about you, reach out to you, how do they do that?
Best way is go to my website. My website is like the jumping point for everything. So if they go to my website, they can preview all the books, they can see testimonials, they can hook up to the YouTube channel, they can hook up to my blog, and they can hook up to my social media. So it's like one click, click on what you need. My resources are all listed there. I have a very extensive Pinterest board as well. So I collect all kinds of curriculum for parents to use and investigate, and however they think it would fit their family best.
Excellent. Barbara, thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything.
Oh, thank you so much, Joe.
Yeah, you bet. And how do you pronounce your last name?
Mojica, Mojica.
Okay, I want to make sure. You never want to assume. Barbara, thank you so much. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you,
Thank
and
you.
best of luck for you and your family and Miles.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Take care.
Bye bye.